Surely this impostor in the mirror has only come so that he might either inform me of what is to come, or to inspire my disbelief, or perhaps to have a laugh at my expense, to ask of me a thing I cannot do, that he knows full well I cannot do. In any event, he is here, to taunt me, express his deep contempt, or, who knows, to perhaps have some sort of chat. This frightful demon would apparently like to convince me that he is, in fact, me. Which is ridiculous. Am I these creases in this forehead? Or the worry that produced them? These swirls of auburn, silver clouds, that just sit there for evidently no purpose? Are all these allegedly physical phenomena simply dreaming themselves? Are they plotting? Do they clash with one another? Do they exist when I'm not looking? And these eyes, am I to understand that I am, somehow, behind them? And those lenses, surgically implanted, am I to think of them as me, as well? In the space between the mirror and the self that is observing, there is laughter, a very great deal of laughter. Can you hear it? Can you explain to me what the joke is? Perhaps the beard. That must be it. These unkempt tendrils rising, like suniverse, prickly white worms from the deep, damp earth, which seem all to be screaming amidst the laughter, which would be deafening if I were listening. But I am not, because I'm watching as the earth, which is my face, begins to bleed amidst my groans and sobs and longings, which it barely hears, and largely just ignores. And from this grubby, squalid garden, this long abandoned fissure, rarely looked at or inspected, emerge these writhing, rough, abrasive, milk-white grubs, who are swarming on this face which is not mine, overflowing with their hunger and their boredom and their questions. All these questions. Who am I? And where am I? Where am I, in fact, located? And whoever it is that asks them, so constantly imagining, expecting me to offer them plausible answers to their questions. But that is far from likely. About as likely as my walking through the park to offer solace to some moss-infested rock that is starving for attention because it's lonely and it's scared, just like these filaments which push up from the pulpy, viscous rot beneath my flesh, praying that they'll find what's on the surface, in the light, might be more kind. If some are longer than the others, which they are, perhaps they're hungrier. Or could it be because they're bullies? Oh, look, consider that one. It has just turned up towards the ceiling, and the one which now hangs over my top lip. What does it now want? It has to know. The more I look, the more unreal this all becomes. These lips and tongue and teeth, these jagged shards, these moonlit tombstones, sitting there like slaves who have been bound each to the other, in which they sometimes are massaged by that imbecilic muscle, with a mind all of its own. It's all so stupid. All these imbecilic armies, thrown together in a cavern which is drenched in warm saliva, and only more so when the self that is observing all this nonsense moves its focus towards the drool and slobber pooling there, like fetid, toxic waste, which ought be spat, nay, begs to be spat, into a toilet, even better, to be spewed into some well-deserving face. Then the river floods its banks more than before, and the photons in the space between the mirror and the self, which, is it me? Is this all me? Are these things me? This thing that's scribbling, that moves its eyebrows, sticks its tongue out? Surely not. This cannot be. This is a nightmare. How did this happen? How did I get here? How was I plopped into this trap? I can remember, at least I think that I remember, that I was flying not long ago. I had no body. It was boundless. There were spirits all around, and now I'm tangled up in ropes of flesh and hair and stink and spittle, like a fly whose many legs are bound in slimy straps of filth, who feels the spider fast approaching, hears its hissing in the laughter, in the space between the mirror, and the self that now has stepped outside its other, seeming self, although I don't recall it chose to. Perhaps it had been forced to. I don't know. How could I know? It's now retreated down some tunnel which recedes behind the eyes, which still pretend that they can see a pair of glasses sliding down upon a nose, which serves to archive all my past in countless scents and heady perfumes, both of which it files away, and hardly ever shares, with the thing I feel is me. It's all so fragile, the way in which I sometimes mouth the words I write, though I would likely not have known that I was doing so, were I not looking at this face which cannot possibly be mine. If it's some house in which I'm forced to live, it's pretty clear it's been abandoned, and yet I cannot leave, nor can I renovate or buy myself another. If there's a landlord, he's indifferent, and he'll be calling in the lease not all that long from now. Yet when I wish to tell him that the plumbing leaks, that drafts come through the windows, which are filthy, that the walls are slowly crumbling, I can't find him, though I know when comes the time the rent is due, he will appear, the greedy bastard. I have been thrown into a squad car by some officers in masks, and I can only watch in horror as it careens down one-way streets, with me encaged in ribs and sinews, behind bars of bones and countless walls of skin. I put a finger in my mouth and bite my nail. Perhaps I'll ground myself. This dizziness will stop. My mind is spinning as I'm pulled beneath more waves, but yet I still can see that face, that thing which keeps pretending that it's me. Oh, how I hate it. Since the first time I encountered it, I knew it was a trick, some sort of joke. Now that my swagger is a stoop, it is no different. It was every bit as bitter then as now. That beardless boy who had no furrows in his brow was just as terrified as I am presently. I did not then, and do not now believe in time, which means there'll be no end to this. This living hell will be eternal. It's all frozen in some stagnant block of stillness, which is violence, only violence. Since I winked into existence, I'm not winking anymore. Nor am I laughing, even smiling, at the countless microbes crawling on my face, as if they're marching on some battlefield, in which there necessarily can never be a victor, for the violence is the point, the atrophy and devastation, which is infinite, it seems. That's not the worst, though. It's the sorrow and the heartache, leaking out of every pore, which were each and every one tattooed upon this face. I'm just so tired of all this. My jaw is clenching, my teeth are locked. There is this strange taste in my mouth of something vast and cruel and nameless, which is leaking down my gullet to my heart. Do I still have one? Yes, I do. At least I seem to, for it's palpitating now. The earth is trembling, and there'll be no end to this. I smell it in the air. My past and future are right now. They're in this room. They're in this very moment. What are those slanted bits of hair in both my eyebrows? Were they there yesterday, the day before, this morning? I cannot know, and do not care to know. I would prefer my face to not become distorted or misshapen, but why is that? I do not know that either. And why the hell should that still matter, least of all to me, at this late stage? If there's some mischievous cartographer at work, there's nothing for it. It's a landscape that is crumbling ever faster, and there's nothing I can do. If it's a story, then its pages are now crumpled, and its binding has long been just food for moths. Although, there seems to be a paragraph or two not there before when it is opened. They've not much interest. All those pages, they lack vigour. They're poorly rendered, filled with vain regrets, and thoughts and sorrows barely grasped. It is a dark, unsparing landscape, and words are hollow things, at least the way that all my words are simply swallowed in a silence, which lacks the means to illustrate or bring to life a colour seen by only me, for which there are no words I know or could possibly invent. And if I weep, that's just an echo too, of throwing anchors overboard, with an effort I cannot maintain, into a sea that's bottomless. This errand of a fool who cannot seem to stop himself from trying, from reaching for some difficult-to-fathom metaphor, way beyond his skill to capture. It won't come. It cannot come, for it is nowhere. Nowhere I have ever been or have some chance of finding now, because I'm crippled, and I'm hiding at this far cry from the surface of my face, by which I'm terrified. I have no wish to travel that long road up to its surface, which would perhaps bring me some solace, but more likely just a bit of clarity I do not want, for the world I look upon only pretends to be familiar. It's been forever altered, which has made of me a ghost behind a door, which has been slammed shut and then locked. And I'm just peering through a peephole at the freakish face of someone I don't know, who becomes 1,000 others every time he moves that face this way or that. I understand why people watch horrific films and place their noses inside books they hope will scare them half to death. It's a distraction from a terror so profound that to contain it in a monster's a relief. For if the monster that's relieved them were to look upon his face with any honesty, he'd rip it off his skull that very moment and run screaming from the room in which he saw it. look out the door into the arms of vicious crowds, who'd likely grab up all their pitchforks, and then light his faceless skull up with their torches, and their laughter, like the laughter that still bubbles through the air between the self that might be me, that still is looking at a face that can't be his. I can't accept this. I refuse. No more now. That's enough. This is a knot I can't untie. It is the world's knot, not just mine. I just happen to be dumb enough to linger in its heart, in its nucleus of fear, locked in a claustrophobic thicket of my past and of my present, all of which are belching long-forgotten nightmares, and as they do so, they're all yawning, drowned in boredom as they take to farting out once more the most cacophonous of symphonies, composed of all the chaos, shock, and grief that live upon that face, which is pretending to be me there, in the mirror, past the space, which is still echoing with laughter spewing out from mouths of fiends, the ones who'll hound me to my grave, then stomp upon it, to make sure that I am dead, when every last nerve's been scraped down to the bone, when what was a face is now a skull in pitch-black darkness, unable to move, to speak, to weep. There's nothing left to either burn or mourn, just the faintest echoes of my grief, the occasional smouldering ember of rage, and more than a teaspoonful of horror, all of it mixed up with exhaustion, which dilutes them, it is true, but, above all, there's this global, paralyzing numbness, a mournful awe, which feels somehow posthumous, a stunned recognition, born of hollowed-out clarity, as if I am a dazed and tired soldier stumbling aimlessly through ruins, and seeing only outlines of what mattered once, the ontological nightmare of aging, observed by a self, by myself, whose inner world's now frozen, buried deep beneath this face and limbs and skin, which cannot possibly be mine. Is this some sort of mercy which something within me has now chosen to allow? I cannot forever choke on and be suffocated by my anguish. The soul goes blank. This soul has gone quite blank, at any rate. So much so that it feels as if these words are being thought and written down in their entirety by a dead man, whose corpse is sitting here somehow. Don't ask me how. I do not know. Does that dead man have within himself a part which still can care, or which can love? If he did, what would he see within himself? What would he do? I do not know. I've not a clue. The dead man hides himself in silence, in sleep, and shame, and fear, and lethargy. When nothing hurts any longer, can I not assert, as well, and with an equal assurance, its very opposite? One who possesses the energy might very well do so. That one is not I, whose haggard face sits atop this collapsed and flattened soul.